of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We haven't seen Sharon or Kevin or Dave in a while, so it's so good to see you guys here again. We'll start off with just a typical roll call that we normally do. Ken Jones here.
Gary, present.
Present Gary. Rob Goyette.
Present.
Dave Dolan.
Here.
Sharon Knott. Gotcha.
I'm here.
Kevin. Herb.
Here.
Gotcha. And Rachel as well, our ladies council. We need, the agenda is here. You take a look at that and see if you agree with what we have, if there's any additions or changes. Otherwise, call for a motion to approve it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
There, a motion to accept it. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Second by Dave Dolan.
Yep.
Any further questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
on page, correction-wise, on page 4 and page 5, the under 9 down to where it says second, Mr. Boykin, I think that should read Mr. Boyette.
That's correct.
And that would carry over for the next section. Mr. Boykin, it should read Mr. Boyette, and then on the next page, it should read Mr. Boyette.
So changes will be made. Thank you for the correction.
So
All-
this, yes, you need to vote on the.
All in favor of accepting the agenda as with the corrections noted? Aye, or 7, fine? Okay. Motion carried, thank you. Moving right on to approval of the minutes of the last meeting. So, trying to look at it.
And you can accept a motion as amended
Okay,
based on.
okay. So we're looking for approval of the minutes? Just want to be sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I move we accept the minutes as presented and corrected.
Okay. Okay, you have a second on this? Second by Kevin, thank you. Any further questions? Call for the vote, all in favor? Aye, all favor sign. Thank you. Motion carried.
Hey, thanks.
Celebrations.
Hey, our celebrations, we had a little mishap, and I'm just gonna celebrate that our soccer team was able to make it that game. It's about 5:45 this morning, from Virginia School for the Deaf. They had a blowout on one of their tires, and so our bus is still there because we couldn't get someone to respond and with such a big tire. So our maintenance crew is going to go up this morning and get it, but they made it home safely, so that's the important thing. We also have wonderful news to share. The House Bill 358 was passed, and that bill basically gives us an additional $400,000 to be used for some of the positions that we're required to have due to legislation of us being a state agency. And Susan will go ahead and share how we're going to allocate that money to spend as well.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, and so, in my talks with some folks on at the Capitol, as well as that giving us that extra funds, I'm very hopeful that we won't have all of our positions that they were looking at be cut. So I'm hoping that we don't, because we do need those positions. If we add a couple more elementary students, for instance, we will at least have to have one more teacher, possibly 3, because right now our 3 elementary teachers are teaching 2 grade levels. And so, if we get a few more students, we'll have to have a teacher at each grade level, depending on the enrollment. So, and then a TA for each one of those. But right now, we're looking like we're in pretty good shape. So hopefully that'll continue to be the case once they pass the budget. I was invited and attended the National Disability Employment Awareness Month event at the Governor's Mansion on Friday. And that was a very special event. They had people with disabilities who are working and being very successful in their employment with some accommodations. And it was, a wonderful event just to celebrate that and to encourage others to employ people with disabilities.
So they had examples of deafness, people with deaf.
There were people who were deaf and blind. There were, physical disabilities. One woman spoke very eloquently about how ADA accommodations and IDA and all the agencies that work with people with disabilities, that anyone can find themselves in a predicament where they have to rely on those services because of having an accident. She, was perfectly normal physically and mentally, and she had 2 trees fall on her car and trap her. And so she had to do rehabilitation and learn how to do everything again. And so she spoke very eloquently about, the fact that no matter who you are, disabled or not, you may have to rely on those agencies for support. So it was very powerful in that sense. Yeah, but there was a blind person that was talking about, how he's become, he was an analyst with math, and he went blind as an adult and just having to change his career. And so he's working with agencies to help them come up with adaptations to help others that have disabilities be more successful in the workplace. So it's really nice. Okay, our enrollment is holding steady right now at 40 students. We have an observation of a student on Thursday, so tomorrow, and that student would be an elementary student. We've had several conversations with parents that have inquired, and hopefully that will be producing some applications as well. So we have some upcoming events. Our EC conference, we are going to attend it as a vendor and share information. It's attended by all your EC teachers, your EC administrators and directors, and support specialists. So hopefully we ordered some banners that will say EMCSD and for the display, and so we're hoping to take some, literature and just get our name out there a little bit more and have some conversations about what we can offer the students who are deaf and hard of hearing. So we're excited about that opportunity, and that's November 17th through the 21st. We have the North Carolina Office of State Human Resources is having a career expo on November 10th to recruit for possible positions. So, and I'll share with you a little while on my director's report what those positions are. And then we also have the opportunity to go to the NC School Board Association Conference. And unfortunately, the first day is our next board meeting, so I've signed up to attend for the 13th and the 14th, but I will miss the first one. So those are the celebrations.
Well, those are good. except for the damaged tire. We'll move on to the,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
do we have a line item for these conferences? Because I was able to glean so much information when I went to the School Board Association meetings in, it was Winston-Salem, and on so many different topics, and able to bring back to Wilson County. And it was encouraged that as many people could go as would go. And of course, it only worked out to where only several of us went every time. If we have a line item, and I don't take anything away from the kids, I also would like to go to that along with you, or ever how many people can go to that. It's very, very beneficial.
Yes.
We have a line item.
We can make arrangements for that to happen.
Okay.
This is Kevin. First question about the number of students that we currently have. You said 40 and possibly one. Also, I'm curious that number. Previously, it was a lower number and it's starting to increase. What is the reason that it's increasing? Because, what is the reason behind the increase?
We've done a lot in the last several months to really try to put the school out there and rebuild relationships with various stakeholders and change our reputation in the community. And, the information, all the way down to our students sharing how positive their experience here has been and the changes that we've made, as well as our summer program where some students got to see that. So we are, actively recruiting. We've done some recruitment type activities. We had an LEA day where we had 16 people participate and learn about House Bill 11 and how that affects our application and enrollment process. And so we were able to educate some of the districts, the local districts, about that new bill and the effects that it has on that application process. So it's just all the events together. I can't pinpoint the exact event that's helped, but I think it's a combination. We've also increased our social media presence, developed an Instagram page, and we're putting more information out there as well about what we're doing and what our teachers and students are doing.
Okay, thank you.
Move on to the director's report.
Okay, so we have a school leadership team, also known as a school improvement team. So when a school is listed as a school that needs to be improved in terms of like their grade, that has to do with testing and graduation rate and all that. But if you're not in improvement, then it's your leadership team. And so because we don't participate in EVOS in terms of the data because our sample size is too small to be able to collect that data, so we have to rely on other things. So technically speaking, we're not a school improvement team because we're not in improvement. But we have our community representative as well as our parent representative, and we had to select new folks to participate in that program. So Carolyn Hornick is going to be our community representative, and Brianna Bates will be our parent representative for that committee. And we look at, data and try to develop strategies to improve the school's academic performance and the students' skill level, as well as diving deep into creating goals based on that data. And so we're looking to establish our goal for the year at our next meeting tomorrow. Okay, so Principal's Corner. Our new principal has been conducting informal and formal observations, getting to know the teachers, their strengths and their weaknesses. He's then following it up with meeting with them and providing feedback on their instruction and the effectiveness of their instruction. And he's continuing to encourage them to provide that rigor and differentiate their lesson plans for students that may be at various levels academically. So he's starting to make some progress there. We have some events that are scheduled coming up, and our ASL community class. We have another one starting in November, and that will run on Tuesday afternoons from 6 to 7. There's been some discussion about possibly doing an online course as well. So we're working on that, or adding an additional day. So we're still working out some of the details for that. We have a trunk or treat, followed by a fall festival on October 31st. And we are inviting the families to attend with the students and doing some different activities that the students will enjoy. And even though it's geared towards our younger students, our older students always participate and enjoy themselves as well. And then in December, on December 19th, we have our Signing Santa event, and that'll be from 9 to 11:30. And that's a very special day. Signing Santa brings Mrs. Claus, and they both sign. They bring their dog, and they have reindeer ears on, antlers on them. And the kids, we schedule all kind of activities and stuff. So it's just a nice festive activity for the students to participate and have a lot of fun around the holiday.
Do you know who is the Mr. Claus?
So Mike,
I think it's Mike.
Chapman.
Yeah, Mike
Yes,
Chapman.
Mike Chapman. Okay, so our HR updates, Simone couldn't be here this morning, but we are interviewing our second candidate for our data manager and executive assistant tomorrow afternoon. We are posting for an interpreter position. We've been able to reallocate a couple of the positions that we won't be using or don't have a need for in the future to be able to get an interpreter. We have 3 right now, and they're out straight, and we have to rely on some contract and interpreters to be able to fill in those gaps. So we could definitely use an additional one. And especially if we continue to add students, we will need more teachers. We're looking to add a food service person because one of our food service workers just retired as effective as October 1st. We also need to add the internal auditor, which is a position that's required for us to be a state agency. And we're going to start our search for our capital projects coordinator. Right now we have meter construction, but they're supposed to be a stopgap for this year while we search for a person to come on board full-time here. So, and that should reduce some of those costs as well if we have, one person doing it as opposed to the company. Although they have been very helpful, so it's definitely, not money lost. And hopefully, when we get those capital projects approved, it'll be well worth that money we're spending because they have, told us a few little tricks to use when requesting funding. So. Then our business service coordinator, and this was initially an accounts payable person. We were looking at possibly doing a little bit of a wider range position to do some additional responsibilities. So we looked at the job descriptions, and that one seemed to fit exactly what the finance department needed. We would love to have a school resource officer. The state does provide some matching funds if you have local dollars to support it. So they'll pay half the salary and then the local dollars. However, as a state agency, we do not receive local dollars. So we were able to reallocate one of our nursing positions because we had 4 positions and we only need 3, 1 nurse for each shift. So we were able to reallocate those funds to the school resource officer. So we'll be posting that position as well. And as I mentioned earlier, if enrollment increases, we'll need an elementary teacher. And then the rest of the positions are on hold until the state passes their budget. And we determine if we have to eliminate those 21 positions or not. And we are also interviewing, in closed session, we'll review some recommendations for hiring a receptionist and 2 RLTs and a bus driver, residential life trainer. Sorry about that. And now, if Susan wouldn't mind coming up and giving you the business and finance report.
So I have a short and sweet report today. I'm gonna stop and let Talisha sign because I can't think and sign and talk at the same time. So in your packet today, you have an overview or summary of our budget, if you'd like to refer to it. We have just finished, of course, the first quarter of the fiscal year, July through September. This report reflects our expenditures during that quarter. Overall, during that time, we spent 80% of our budget, which is right where we should have been, because for one, we did not have staff working during that entire time because of 10 months staff were on break. And we've been trying to be fiscally conscientious, since we do not have we don't know the complete ramifications and outcome of a full state budget for this fiscal year. We have received funds to support legislative increases in the state health plan for state employees and for a small increase in retirement contributions. Okay. And that is reflected here in this report. What is not reflected is what Ms. Iannucci referred to just a moment ago with the recent passage of House Bill 358. The school is receiving $400,000. Now, that's wonderful, great, a lot of money, but we had it spent before we received it. So the school is certifying those funds in 2 categories. One for contractual services, primarily for our CPC or our construction project contractor, because that's a $300,000 annual contract, okay? The remaining $100,000 is being budgeted in the salary line item for the addition of an audit position. Ms. Iannucci may have shared recently that we were informed by the Office of the State Auditor that each agency is required to have audit staff. The size of our school, of course, we would not need more than 1 person. Personally, I think 1 position could support maybe all 3 residential schools, but doesn't matter. As I said, we are certifying $100,000 of those new funds in the salary line item, okay? And those $400,000 are not reflected here because that was just approved the end of September, and state budget actually we're supposed to have those certifications turned in today, and they plan to approve by October 21st, okay? So now that we've gotten through the first quarter, we have some priorities. We know what our remaining availability is. We're permitting some staff development activities that are necessary, and ensuring that we fully utilize all the funding that's available to us. So that's my report for today. Any questions?
So we're able to pay all of our bills
Absolutely.
as we look today, and as we look forward, we
Yes.
think we should be okay as well,
Yes.
depending on the number of positions we may need to add because of the increase in students, potentially.
Right, and that's dependent upon if we have to give up
Gotcha.
any number of positions. If we can keep all or some of those, we should be still in a good place, but depends.
It's good. Any questions for Susan? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Okay, next will be our maintenance update, and we have actually started, or the construction has started on our maintenance garage. There is an abatement process that is underway right now for asbestos in the garage. They were supposed to finish that up either today or tomorrow, and then start on the roof repair and replacement in Vestal. So there is a lot of leaking that is occurring in our Vestal dormitory because the roof kind of went down like this, and there's all the water was gathering right there, and that's what created the hole in the roof. And so that is in the process of going to start for either tomorrow or Friday. And so we will relocate our middle school classes because they are in classes on the second floor in Vestal. So during that time that they're taking the old roof off and they start putting the new roof on, we will relocate them just to make sure there's nothing that's in the air that comes from the roof. It's a precaution as opposed to anything else though. And then, so I know a while back, Gary had mentioned that there was the North Carolina Collaboratory that was going to be doing some research. And so their application process for one of the colleges to submit a research project to them is coming up here in the end of October, I believe. And what that is it's a $70,000 grant that is going to be given to a research company or research, organization. Right now, there's two proposals on the table. One is UNC Charlotte and one is UNC Chapel Hill. One proposal is basically going to look at how our organizational chart has changed and what else has changed as a result of us becoming a state agency. Are we using our funding effectively? Are we, engaging in research-based interventions and things of that nature with the students in terms of the curriculum? So that was one proposal. The other proposal has to do with artificial intelligence, and I've actually have a meeting scheduled with them tomorrow to get more details and information about that project. But so that's kind of where that's at right now. So we'll see moving forward. Yes.
Can you do both of them? I mean, it's not like one or the other, or?
I think they'll only approve one per school. So I'm not sure if they'll approve one for us and maybe another one for Morganton, or if they'll want to compare the two studies at the two schools. So I'm not sure how they'll look at that.
Which university is doing which university is doing which?
Okay. UNC Charlotte is actually the one that is looking at how things have changed at the school. And then UNC Chapel Hill is the one that's looking at the AI.
Now, it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that the overall theme from the collaboratory basically is early language acquisition. Is that correct? Which is
Yes.
awesome. And we are not to fear the collaboratory. They're not snooping, they're trying to help us.
Yes.
And they also have money to go along with it. Correct?
Well, the 70,000.
Okay.
Yes, for the research.
Yes.
We won't get that money, but they'll be using that for the research part of it and salaries to fund those positions.
How long does the study take, do you know?
It is scheduled for a year.
Oh, 1 year, okay, that's good.
This is Kevin. Help me understand this. So what exactly will they be studying?
Well, it will depend
And
on,
also, how will they be studying it?
it will depend on exactly which proposal application is accepted by the collaboratory. We have to sign off on whatever proposals we want to support. And you can support more than one. So it will, depend on which one they select, or they could possibly select both, I don't know. But, anything from questioning, having interviews with people here, to working with the teachers and seeing what curriculum they're using, to looking at our organizational chart prior to July 1, and now since we've transitioned to a state agency as of July 1. So they'll be looking at a lot of that within the one proposal, if that would get it. And then the other one is how AI can support what we do in the learning of the students and teaching instruction.
Okay, so my understanding is that the research is that it's really depending upon how it is interpreted. So sometimes, I'm really leery about when people start to talk about research, it's kind of vague, so I'm just recommending that we tread lightly, very cautiously, because we don't know what is the foundation of that, and we don't want things to fall through the cracks. So AI is all new, it's an all new game, and we don't want, we don't know what the future is going to be like.
Yes. When I met with them, I did tell them that one of my concerns is that we have to have everything approved. We're held to a different standard than what your traditional LEAs are held to because we're a state agency. We have to get any type of software or program that we use on campus approved by DIT. And so there's, if an organization is a small company and they don't have all the security in place, we can't use that. A perfect example is the unique learning system that is used in your traditional LEAs with Extend 1 students for your intellectual disabilities. A lot of the schools use that. It's very successful. It's one of the best programs, but we have not been able to get the approval for our usage of that program because it won't meet the security standards that we are required to meet. Okay.
So, this is Kevin, and maybe I'm playing devil's advocate in reference to those types of situations. Sometimes when you're bending the rules, I guess if it affects the student's growth, would that be possible? But also, we may be isolated by the system. So I'm just kind of curious which type of situation would this be?
So basically, we can't do anything there was just a Power School was last year where we had to send notices to all of our families that the program had been hacked. And that is a state program that has gone through all the security measures. And so they're, very strict on it because they don't want the staff and the students' data to get out there and be misused. And so, we certainly understand the reason behind it, but it is frustrating when you can't provide the same things that the other LEAs get to offer their students. But yeah, so I've talked to a couple of different people at DPI to see, if that's something that we could look at, but right now, that's the requirements that we have to support because it jeopardizes everybody's information if we don't.
Now, again, I know we keep talking about DPI, but I thought we were disassociated from DPI.
So what you
Are
have,
we not? Is that my understanding?
what you have to understand is that administratively, our business office and our HR department is separate from DPI. However, as a school, we will always be under, because we're a public school, we will always be under those restrictions based on being a school.
Yes, Rachel.
If I might add something to that, I have a conversation set up with DPI on some of the governance pieces. And our firm also has we do a lot of finance work and banking work. So we have some cybersecurity specialists, I would say. And if it pleases the board, I'd be happy to see if I can talk to them a little bit, because I'm familiar with the unique learning system for the extended content standards children. And if it pleases the board, I'd love an opportunity to talk with DPI and maybe bring in people from our firm that can help. We do data privacy agreements for school systems all the time, every day. We have people that do those. So it might be something that I would be able to have some influence on if you want me to take a look at it, but I want your permission to even investigate it first.
That would be great because I've seen the program. I've used the program in Wake County, and when I went to Nash County as an instructional coach, I actually recommended that they adopt it, and they did, and it's been very successful with the Extend One programs. Any other questions about that? All right, so, and Rachel, that would be wonderful.
I'm happy to do it. Anything I can do to help.
All right, so we have 2 federal grants that have been allocated to us. Once those monies are allocated, it's up to the individual school or LEA to actually apply for those monies. And so it's a rather big undertaking to apply for the grants. But the IDEA grant we were allocated $76,000. And there's restrictions on what you can use those dollars for. And you have to create a budget within the application and indicate what your program is and how you're going to spend those dollars for the federal monies. And apparently we have not applied for those grants in the past. And so I took it upon myself this year, being familiar with them and having done this back in 2012 to 2016 at another school. I was actually able to apply. We've already received the grant for Title II dollars, and Title II dollars is actually money that will go towards your beginning teacher program, your mentors for those beginning teachers, as well as some professional development. That one is the smaller of the 2 grants, and that's $2,500. So we know we've already been approved for that. This is the IDEA grant, and as you can see, it is rather thick, and I can pass this around if you want to take a look at it or have it available to you. We had to also post in the Wilson Times that it was available if anyone wanted to come and look at it, at what we were proposing. So the public is welcome to come and review this if they desire to do that. Yes.
Are you noticing any cuts yet in the Department of Education, the special ed stuff is kind of.
Right. We are not experiencing any of it yet. The monies for these two programs, I believe, is still in the works, and DPI has access to those funds currently. There are some special programs that we wouldn't have here. There's some like lunch programs for a specific population and things of that nature that is not available right now. But again, that doesn't affect us here.
So, help me. So I remember in the past, when I was young, a student here at the School for the Deaf, there was a man, I think it was a finance guy. He was a finance man, but he was the person who did fundraising through the foundation here. And Gary's saying, I know who you're talking about. No, that's not him. It was a school position because it was in the other building, but it was like 504 funding. This was for many years. I think the guy's name was Pierce or something like that. Pierce Bell.
Bill.
But that position was the position that was to get funding for 504 special programs from the federal government. And so they were able to get the money for the school to expand different programs. Now, I mean, this was when I was very young. It had to be about 50 years ago. But I'm just trying to remember, is that something that, in order to get a position like that, would that be helpful to help secure federal funding? I don't know, just a thought.
Yes, Gary. Long time ago, you were a boy and I was a young man. We hired a person named Bill Bonsignor. He was a lawyer, and that was his thrust. And he set up a foundation along with Coulter Paxton. And they had a foundation here and they raised money, and he was a grant writer, and both of them together put money in our coffers that helped in education so many ways when DPI, of course it wasn't DPI, it was Department of Human Resources then, could not provide us money. We would go to this money that was provided by the foundation. Our foundation folded. We've been through so many superintendents. Some understood, some did, some wanted, some didn't. And that money, and I don't know, Rob, you can help me with this. When you've got money in a foundation and it goes belly up, then it goes somewhere. There is a person, Bill went on up north, make a lucrative career. Coulter Paxton, Weber Paxton. She is, Coulter's the old man. Weber, she's still here and she has volunteered at one point in time when I talked to her to come back and talk about the history and where things were when it folded. And it may be something we need to look into. But yes, he was hired to do that. Also know he was hired on a percentage of how much money he raised. He got a little bit of, he wet his beak and that was set up. So he obviously tried to get as much money as he could. And he was very successful. They were very successful.
Gary, also for something like that, like a foundation, there's usually a memorandum of agreement between the board and the foundation about how the school's name is going to be used, how money will be dispersed if the foundation shuts down. So there's usually, to the extent that there's any reservation on the board as to the fact that you've had a foundation that maybe didn't necessarily continue on, I think a lot of that can be resolved in the agreement between the board and the foundation to protect the board in those cases and the funds that have been collected on behalf of, in the board's name, for example.
Well, to my knowledge, this is so far back, we did not have a school lawyer, and I don't know what was written. There was no memorandum of understanding or anything else like that. It was basically, I think, probably flying by the seat of their pants because there weren't that many foundations around. Morganton also has a working foundation and has had it for a long time. And that may be something that you can contact them and see if we did use that as a template. You know.
Yes, and I have a conversation scheduled with Morganton's attorney just to touch base so we figure out what each of the schools are doing and what resources could be shared on that piece, and I'm happy to ask them about that. But I just wanted the board to know, don't let the fact that a previous situation didn't work out doesn't mean we can't tighten it up and make it work again.
So my question is, would a foundation be useful to this to ENCSD?
A foundation's ability to do some things that a school's restricted from in terms of like raising funds and allocating funds. And so it definitely helps in a lot of ways. So just be.
So it's mostly fundraising, and the money that's raised there is independent of DPI, whatever. It's our decision what to do and how to use it.
Yes.
Rob, have you dealt with any foundations in all your travels and all your contacts?
I had about 35.
There you go.
The only concern would be the salary, because we can't add a position without going through an approval process with the state, and getting this, sign off on that position. So that would be the only deterrent, is whether or not, we could use state money to pay for that position.
Well, here again, we can go back to what Morganton's doing. It's not setting a precedent. They've been there forever.
So it's worth exploring, and that's what Rachel said.
It's a super booster club is what it is.
Yes.
And
Foundations have done a lot of things. We've got foundations I've written documents for that are managing affordable teacher housing in some school systems where they've done these kinds of things. So they can do whatever you agree. It's as good as the partnership. That's just my opinion. Foundation is as good as the partnership. But I'm happy to look at that if that's what you would like.
I think it's worth exploring, for sure. Thank you.
And that pretty much concludes the superintendent's report.
Well, thank you for that. That's a lot. But we're going in the right direction.
Yes, we are.
Some things we're resolving, some things, the questions coming up, and we're resolving the questions, So we keep doing that, and we'll see things continue to move in the direction we wanted for the best of the students who are here. So, thank you. Next on the agenda is the
public input.
public input. So, we have no public input. Okay, we'll move on then. New business. Policy review team.
Yes, so in your folders, there is a list of proposed meeting dates. And there's probably a few more than what we would be looking to have, but we wanted to include some dates to give everybody options who would be participating on it. And again, the people who would be participating on that review team would be Gary and Dave, myself, and what we would do is like the business finance director, the HR director, IT director, they wouldn't necessarily have to be at every meeting because their job responsibilities, won't allow them to be there all the time. But whenever there's policies that would involve their departments, we could certainly include them in that meeting and reviewing those documents and policies before we put a proposal together. And then, the principal, Mandy would also take notes, but she's also done a lot of research on policies for me. And then we would have a teacher, participate in as well.
I will be in a foreign country on October 27th and 28th, so I can't do those two. The others look okay with me, but going to be.
This is perfect for me because I go under the knife on December the 11th, and I will be out of circulation for a while when they remove this cancerous kidney from my body.
Okay.
So is that okay? I mean, does that work?
Yes, so we could, schedule it for the November dates as well as the December dates up until the 10th and through the 10th. Is that correct? Based on?
So is the schedule for November? You said November the 12th and the 17th is what I'm seeing.
So the dates that are in your book are for the policy review team. And we'll bring that information back to the board.
So not to be totally egotistical, but my being absent on the 27th and 28th is fine. In other words, I'm not central to the meeting. I can be gone and no one will notice. This is great.
We would definitely notice.
All right, good.
I guess we could start doing some work and preliminary work without you, but.
I could cancel my trip, but I don't want to.
Well, where are you going?
Egypt.
Well, maybe you should just take the policy review team.
Forget
Okay.
All expenses paid?
it. By me.
All right.
Okay, so, and then the next one is the, let's see, the capital projects.
Yes.
We will be having a lot of construction going on, over the course of the next couple of months, probably several months. They're starting the Vestal, roof here shortly, probably by the end of this week. They will be starting the gymnasium. There's some structural damage that, they didn't put the right supports in the building whenever they originally built the McAdams gym and McAdams building. So on the back side of the building, they're going to have to take out the brick and put some additional supports in there to prevent the building from coming down. So we're doing that as well as the HVAC in the gym. And that's scheduled to go under construction in December. And then there's also a lot of drainage issues in the back of the campus. So the driveway all the way towards Longleaf, that goes on the outside of our campus and within the fenced area though, that will be under construction from ILC back, and it'll be limited to one lane traffic. We have to keep the lane open because of the gate being there, and us having to have that gate open and available if there's an emergency. So there will be lots going on.
Did we ever resolve the steam pipe leakage?
The steam leak, yes, but there's ongoing steam issues. We just had an issue last week with hot water not being available for a while until Longleaf repaired a leak they were having on their campus because it's coming from them. So we use our steam as well as our water supply comes from, and the chillers for the HVAC. We do have one or two buildings on campus, Alfred being one of them, that is separate from the water line there. So if there's no water anywhere else on campus, Alfred has water because they get it from the opposite side of the city. So, and that continues to be on the list of needs in terms of capital improvement, but it's down on the list just based on the cost as well as feasibility of doing it.
Any other capital things?
We are, one of the projects, John Long had shared a list of priorities with you all last year that he had created. And so I had Uter, as well as our maintenance crew, the supervisor of our maintenance department. He's been around a long time and is very familiar with exactly what the needs of the campus are and what's been done and what hasn't been done. And so we had a meeting where we sat down and looked at the list. And one of the priorities, especially with the number of students that we have and the number of beds that we have in ILC, we've already opened Vestal for the elementary, middle school students. And so we're almost at capacity in ILC. And so we really need to get moving on the McAdams dorm. And so we wanted to prioritize that. We do have some construction dollars that were allocated for some of the other projects on campus. And they overestimate in case, like whenever they were doing the roof of ILC, for instance, they over allocated because they weren't sure if there was any structural damage to the roof until they removed, all the shingles and everything. And so the roof itself was in pretty good shape. They just had to put a couple patches and then re-shingle it, put the new roof on. And so there's a little over 100,000 left on that project that can be reallocated to another project. The same thing occurred with the Massey Auditorium. And so we just learned, because in the past we've been told that we couldn't take monies and do it on a project that we had already submitted for capital project. And one of the benefits of Uter, they were able to share that with us, that we are able to do that. And so we can start, looking at those dollars and how much it's going to cost to do some repairs and remodel the restrooms and shower areas in the McAdams dormitory so that we can start using that building again.
Good. Anything else?
I think that's it for capital.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl, for the updates on that.
No problem.
Then we go on to the MOUs that we had some discussion on in the past.
Yes.
I'm happy to speak about that
Okay.
momentarily. I think the board had agreed to allow your previous council, my long-term partner, Brian Shaw, to finish out those MOUs. I did receive the one between DPI and your school related to related to insurance coverage with the final set of revisions on it. It came with a note that DPI had one question, and the question was not in the email, so I have a conversation set this afternoon to talk to DPI and ask them about that. But other than that piece, Brian sort of finished those out, and he's satisfied with the MOU as it stands. We've got this one question to figure out what DPI's question was and see if we're all in agreement on that, and I should know that this afternoon. So what the board could do, if you were interested, I know you've been wanting to put this to bed, is you could, as it stands, you could approve the MOU, so long as that one issue that DPI asked about passes legal muster. So in other words, you could approve it as it stands pending attorney review. And then that would just leave, if it's not an issue that impacts the MOU, then Brian's recommendation is that it was ready for approval, is my understanding. And that way you'd be done. You don't have to come back to it unless something arises this afternoon that I would bring back to you. But if that's done, then that's done.
That's for the DPI.
The DPI memo on the insurance.
Wasn't that the one we were gonna see if we needed to include any of the educational pieces to it?
So I was going to ask, it's odd the way the memo is set up because it's just labeled as an MOU between DPI and your school, but it really only addresses the insurance pieces. So I think we could come back and either amend it if there are these other pieces that need to be addressed, or have a second MOU to address the other pieces, or if the board is tolerant of another, waiting until next month when I've been able to vet through some of these things about the programs and the other oversight pieces that aren't covered in this MOU. I just, with someone already having gone 99% of the way on doing the review, I didn't want to go back and recreate the wheel on that particular MOU because if you've already paid an attorney to review it. And so we could do that in a number of ways, or you can accept this as an update and I can come back to you at your November meeting and talk to you about what was outstanding and what additional things they were willing to agree to. So it's the board's pleasure, whatever you tell me you want to do.
I think we should just take this as an update. And then when you come back next month, hopefully we have some resolution, some firm direction on the remaining.
Pieces of it.
Yeah,
That sounds fine with me. I'm happy to pick that up. And like I said, I scheduled, when we talked about it, we got this maybe last week. And so when I talked to Cheryl about it, I set up some conversations. So
I think I'd rather have it complete before we go through the process. As complete as we can get it, let's just say, like you say, we're 99%.
yes, you are. Yeah. And that's fine with me. I'll do whatever you want me to do.
Is that okay, Cheryl?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Then was there MOU on Department Administration?
So I sent a message and asked about that because the only one that I've gotten back with all the feedback is the DPI memo that relates to the insurance. Have you received anything back that I didn't on the?
No, I mean, I know I had received a draft form.
Yes.
Where it's just looking at the HR and the business office and some of the supports that they provide. We actually recommended some changes because we're not using DOA as much as the other two schools are based on our employees' abilities and staffing versus theirs. And so what we're basically looking at is we put as needed on a lot of them because we're not using those tasks. And, you know, if one of our employees got sick or was out for an extended leave or something, then we would need DOA support in that area. But as it stands, we don't need them for everything that was on there. And so based on that information, the Secretary of State contacted me and we had a Teams meeting, and he shared with me that because we're using DOA staff to the extent that the three schools are, and he said he gave us all kind of kudos in terms of our staff and their abilities and how quickly they've been able to get through their trainings that are required for them to take on some of the additional responsibilities that they have, and us getting some other people in place and positions. They've done a fantastic job. They were really impressed with our staff in those regards, and said that we've put it together an excellent team. So with that all being said, he then indicated that he would require us to pay $60,000 towards those services. And so my question to him was, well, if we're not using them as much as the other two schools, are we all three schools paying the same amount, or are we paying a different amount? And he said, no, that all three schools will be paying a different amount based on how much they've been using, the services there. And we did have to use them a lot more in the month of July, and a little bit more at the beginning of August, and each month that's getting less and less. So hopefully after this year, we wouldn't have to have those services unless it's just as a backup in case someone's out for a period of time.
And we have some follow-up questions based on that Cheryl and I discussed about, what time period is covered by the $60,000? Is it prospective? Is that a payment for what we've already done? Just kind of understanding the fee and also what is covered by the fee. What are we paying? What is the $60,000 paying for? Just so we can figure out whether, and also can we, if there are services in it, what of that can we absorb in-house so that fee either could be lower or may not be necessary in the future, if what they're doing we can do for ourselves. And also giving ourselves a timeline to get caught up to that. So, okay, if we can take over that task for ourselves over the next 6 months, we may not have a $60,000 fee in the future. So we had some follow-up questions we're going to review with DOA.
And also, we're giving as much as we're receiving. So do we send them a bill to offset the 60, or we just accept it? Because we are doing a yeoman's job here, and we're helping the other 2 schools also.
So what I basically asked them to do, Susan and Simone, is to keep track of how frequently and the amount of time that DOA staff calls them for assistance on how they're doing something so that they can help the other 2 schools. And I figured if we needed to negotiate next year, we would have that data to support our negotiations.
So the DOA memorandum, I don't have a near final version of that memo, but I do have time scheduled to have some conversation with them about concerns that we've had with regard to administration thus far. Thank you, sir.
That's good.
Session we're going to talk about, didn't
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I've got one question, and I think my understanding is going to be incorrect. The proposed MOA with DOI, DPI, doesn't talk about directors and officers insurance until like section 4, I think it is. And then it says that that's the obligation of board of trustees at the school to get that type of coverage, directors and officers insurance. But it almost refers to it as an option, to the point that I'm looking at that as a secondary insurance and not principal insurance that would take effect through DPI and the school, because when you look at what's covered, most everything is covered within this agreement. And that might make a difference in terms of what our directors and officers insurance costs.
Sure.
Am I looking at that wrong?
No, I don't think you're incorrect. There are a lot of things that are covered, like the professional liability. There's a lot of things that are covered in this agreement outside of the directors and officers insurance. I think if the board looked at, says at your own discretion, you can choose and purchase the following kinds of insurance, including directors and officers. What I think you would want to do is, if when you pursue that directors and officers policy, you would want them to understand fully the kind of coverage you already have and figure out what gaps, if any, they can fill.
And we do have that now, correct?
Directors and officers insurance.
I thought it was just board member coverage, but I mean, I could be wrong.
And that should be the same thing.
Okay,
It should be the same thing.
We do have board member coverage.
yes.
And I haven't reviewed your insurance policy since I came on last month, but I'm happy to take a look at the coverage for officers being like your, if you're thinking kind of your top level administrators, superintendent, your, those kinds of things, your directors and those kinds of things. I'm happy to take a look at that and see what coverage you already have and see if I identify any gaps there.
Mr.
But it-
Chairman, I would recommend that.
Yeah, I, but to, just to be, shouldn't, we need to be clear on that for sure. I thought we were, but it's,
I'll have to take a look at your policy and how they define insured under the current policy that you have, but I'm very happy to do that.
okay.
So I'll put that on
We'll
my
take
to-do
that,
list.
yes, thank you.
Sure, can you get someone to send me a copy of your? Thank you.
Any other questions before we go into closed session?
We're just gonna discuss.
Oh, discussion about closed
So
session.
this is Kevin, and it bothers me that the state, hang on just a second. So the state dollars, so the dollars that was for training. So we are a state agency, so I don't quite understand why it's almost like it's a bid. Maybe it's cheaper to hire our own training staff. Maybe it'd be cheaper to contract privately to provide that, as opposed to going through the state. So is it possible to submit our own? I don't know, I'm just not I'm feeling itchy about this one.
Are you referring to the DOA money or?
This is for Secretary of State, that you said
Yes,
contacted
so
you
that-
regarding, that.
Yes, so we couldn't hire private industry to help us because we have to follow all the state guidelines. And so the state's way of operating is completely different than your private industry. And that's, no matter how much training or degrees you have in business, for instance, or HR, when you come to state government, you have to go through all of their trainings in order to have access to their systems. And so it's almost like you're going to college all over again because you're, getting trained on all types of different systems and methods of doing things.
Mr. Chairman, may I chime in on something?
Yes,
I'm
please.
sorry. No problem. Would it be helpful, it might be helpful, especially with the transition having happened this summer, if I could put together a chart that talks about, this is what you have to get from the state, this is where you have discretion.
Okay.
Would that help to clarify? Something that basically said, these are where you have to use what's offered by the state. This is where you have the option to pursue other options if they're more affordable or higher quality from the board's perspective. Would that be helpful to board members?
I
I
think
think
so.
it'd be better.
Yeah, I would love to do that for you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Okay, any other questions on this subject matter? We'll move on to the next item, which is the
Discussion.
Discussion.
Closed session. I think our new lawyers made a recommendation that we may adhere to. Very interesting. I've never heard of it, but it's got merit.
So the question on the table was, should we have closed session at the beginning of our meeting? Say from 8:30 to 9, and at 9 the official meeting starts? Or should we continue with the closed session at the end of the meeting as we would do today? That's for the board members to discuss.
And one of the reasons that was recommended as an option is because oftentimes whenever you leave and you go into closed session at the end of a meeting, if you have guests that are participating online or here, then they either have to stick around or, initially we didn't have the ability to open it back up. And so we just kind of closed them out and they weren't able to see what happened during closed session or if there was any discussion after in terms of open session coming back. And so the thought for some people, or they do it at the beginning, have it scheduled a certain amount of time And then people know that that's when open session is going to start, and they don't have to worry about, logging in and logging out or coming back in or doing something, hanging out until closed session's over. They can come at the very beginning of the open session then.
I don't have a recommendation or a strong feeling either way. It was just something, if you've got people who are sitting and waiting during closed session to see what action may have been taken at the end of closed session when you come back into open, that can be avoided by a swap in the agenda, but there's a lot of people do it after.
Any comments? Yes.
I have no issue with it being at the beginning, as long as we have somewhat of a tight deadline.
Right.
It's going to be this amount of time set aside for that, and we stick to that.
Which is hard if you're in the middle of something that's important. It's tough to do that.
I have known closed sessions where you think you're gonna have just a simple thing go on for hours and people sitting out waiting for us to go back into open session. So I don't know what kind of time limit you'd put on it, 30 minutes, 1 hour before. And then it's gonna help also our interpreters because of the situation we had a couple of times before where it went wrong and we had programmed them or asked them to stay for a certain number of hours and it went over and they had to go and it was just a mess.
Yeah, I remember that very well.
So we need a motion. We're going to consider this
This
as
is
a
Karen.
change.
I do believe that if we do keep it the way that it is now, having the meeting first and then closed session at the end, the closed session, if it does go on, that could be tabled until, we have to come back. But if we vote for what we need to during the closed session, it might be more difficult to put it off to another meeting if we do it in the beginning.
Well, I've got to say that I was told to limit our hiring of the interpreters for 2 hours. That was a huge mistake. So now I tell them 3 hours. Now, we've not had a meeting go more than 3 hours. Maybe Rob would remember one because he has to go to so many other meetings. But if we tell them 3 hours and we know that, maybe we can finish it and keep it like it is right now. And that would be my recommendation. I don't think if we have to keep it the same, it has to go as a vote.
No,
Keep
sir.
it safe.
So if no action to change, the only motion you would need is if you wanted to change something. So
Okay.
you're fine. If you want to keep it the same, then you're fine. Yep.
We're good.
So I guess we'll stay the same.
Yes, let me take them into closed session now.
All right, thank you for that.
Ron, okay. Mr. Chairman, I move the NCSD Board of Trustees go into closed session to consider personnel matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A6 and 115C-321. Also to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A3. And this is to Rob's concern, very valid. We've added this. Also to formulate plans relating to emergency response to incidents of school violence or to formulate and adopt the school safety components of school improvement plan by the board or a school improvement team as provided in North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A8.
Second, Mr. Chair.
It's moved and second to go into closed session. Okay, let's vote. All in favor? Okay. Closed session starts.
Okay, so look for adjournment. Need a second?
I just make a quick comment about, I really appreciate the discussions that we've had here today with the support of Rachel and the folks that are around us, Kevin and Laura. I appreciate, but Sharon, I appreciate what you guys have brought to the table for us to be sensitive to the deaf students as well, and continue to do that. We want to be that way, and we're getting better every day at doing it, so being here, thank you. So, all right,
Thank you.
meeting adjourned.
No, you need a second and
Oh.
a vote on adjourn.
There's a second. Mom's got
Rob,
a second.
second. All in favor of adjournment?
Good news.
Now you're
Yes,
Got you.
Kevin said aye. And I wanted to say that Rachel brings a fresh blood to this committee. Thank you so much.
It's truly a compliment.
And all of you are always invited to come to the school if there's anything like you want to see happen. If you want to know how we do things, you're welcome to come and we can have a conversation prior to, and then I can take you and show you whatever it is you have concerns about. But I know the two of you probably have a lot of questions yourselves, so, but that's open to anyone.